Hello and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Gill, and I serve as the professional development committee or professional development director of the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're so happy to have you. Quick housekeeping items. Just so you know, there are plenty of sessions that you can sign up for just like this. So we'd be more than happy to have you sign up at pacac.org/virtual. Also know that the recording from this session will be available when it is over, and that is also available at pacac.org/virtual. And just so you know that your camera and microphone are off during this session, so our panelists cannot see nor can they hear you, but you are more than welcome to ask questions through the Q&A anytime during the session. The session will run 45 minutes in length. We'll do a hard stop at 5:45. And with that said, I will turn it over to Tyra, Luke, and Mary, who will introduce themselves.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. Good to see you. Nice to see everyone who's joining us today for the Gettysburg College session. My name is Mary Smith. I'm one of the Senior Associate Directors from the Gettysburg Admissions Office. I am also a proud class of 2000, and I handle Central Pennsylvania, South Central Pennsylvania, and Northeast Pennsylvania.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mary. My name is Luke Freegon. I'm an admissions counselor at Gettysburg College. In addition to being an admissions counselor, just like Mary, I'm an alum, class of 2018. I think we're all actually alums up here, which is great. A little bit of a good showing for us. I recruit with students out of the areas of Connecticut, Western New York, Western Pennsylvania, and a little bit of Rhode Island. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm happy to see all of our faces on the screen with Gettysburg backgrounds. This is great. This is awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyra Crosby. I'm one of our admissions counselors as well, and I'm also a class of 2017 alum. I travel the greater Philadelphia area and outwards a little bit, and then also Central America and the Caribbean. So there is that. Beyond that, I do handle our counselor programming, so all things counselors, as well as our STEM Scholars program.
A good reminder. I should mention I also work very closely with our Sunderman Conservatory of Music, which we'll talk more about momentarily. But we do have some lovely slides to share with you. I promise that it will not all be a PowerPoint presentation, so just some brief highlights. But first of all, obviously, this is who we are. Once again, Tyra, Luke, and Mary. We do have a brief form at the bottom, but frankly, since you came into our Zoom session, don't worry about filling that out. I will just turn us to the next slide and turn it over to Tyra to talk about a little bit of the look and feel of campus.
Right. So what you're looking at right here is an aerial view of campus, and it is gorgeous. Look at all of that green. Right there in the middle, that big white building is Pennsylvania Hall, which is also Luke's background. For a closer look, that is our oldest building on campus, and it is a pretty much kind of center campus. And around it, you'll see all of those other academic buildings. To the right, you'll see the library and that cluster of 3 residence halls that look the same. Those are first-year residence halls. So I want to point that out because it's close to everything. You can roll right out of bed, right there's the library, or run over to your class that you have overslept for. Maybe not, but leave yourself more time if you're a student, for sure. And right next to it, of course, dining hall, Center for College, our College Union building. You can walk from one end of campus to the other end in basically 10 minutes. So nothing is really far. And then as you go up this block, you kind of see the road there, you'll hit town. We are a world famous location. And so we get over 3 million visitors to the town in a year, making this the best of both worlds. You have pretty much rural, beautiful Gettysburg. You have hiking trails. You have lots of outdoors things. You can put your blanket out on the quad. But then you also do have a thriving town life just 2 blocks up. And most of the things students do in town revolve around food, for sure. That food is, maybe 50-cent wing night at Blue and Gray's, or even maybe going to a movie theater. But I'll throw it out to Luke for us to really kind of talk about centering our location in terms of where you guys are.
Yeah, so thank you, Tara. That's a really apt description of Gettysburg, kind of that cool small town feel, but we do have that rural atmosphere. It is really important to realize that we are in Gettysburg, the town. Gettysburg is a word that you've all heard before. You've all heard of the Battle of Gettysburg and the Gettysburg Address. And so to Tyra's point, we do have a really strong tie to the tourism industry here in Gettysburg. Over 3 million people came here last year. So it's really cool to have that kind of small town feel of steps from campus and the access to people from all over the world who are coming here, but also be able to step back onto campus and have kind of that small private liberal arts and sciences school feel, which we do really well. In addition to being in kind of a vibrant community, we're close to a lot of big cities too. So as Mary's going to show you, we're close to some cities down south of us, like Baltimore and Washington, D.C. Baltimore's only an hour away. D.C.'s pretty close as well. Our students get over to Philadelphia and New York City quite often as well. I remember when I was a student here at Gettysburg, every weekend, the campus activities board would have some sort of trip to one of these cities. More often than not, it was a trip to a Broadway show in New York, which is really cool. But we also use these cities to connect our students with our really strong alumni network, which we'll talk to, we'll kind of speak to that later. But it's really cool to be able to have that small town feel, that rural feel on our college campus, but then be able to have access to these big cities that are close by. On campus, we've got a college transportation department that essentially functions like, I guess I would say, our own Uber. You can go online, schedule a car, get a driver. I'm from 6 hours away from Gettysburg, so it was nice for me to be able to get home. It's really easy to do, and I think we balance the opportunities in big cities really well with the really cool community style action that's happening on campus. And our students are, obviously doing a lot on campus, and we'll kind of speak to that. But I want to kick it off to Mary to kind of talk about what we are as a school. We are a community, but we are a community of the liberal arts and sciences. And so Mary, what does that mean?
Sure. And I do enjoy this. A great presentation between the three of us, but I'm going to actually pause. I know there's a nice group of students and families and perhaps counselors even joining us for this session. Please, by all means, feel free to use that Q&A box. Ask us lots of questions as we go. We want to make this a little bit interactive. I know some of you will be watching this as a recording after this. So towards the end, we will also share our email addresses. So if you have additional questions because you weren't viewing this live, please definitely reach out to us. But with that being said, as Luke mentioned, yes, we are a National College of the Liberal Arts and Sciences. Now, what the heck does that mean? When somebody says liberal arts to me, I remember thinking initially, oh, well, liberal arts, that must mean liberal. No. So what we mean when we say a College of the Liberal Arts and Sciences is it means that you as a student get to dive in deep to something you're passionate about, whether that is the fine and performing arts, whether that is the STEM area, so biology, chemistry, physics, you name it, we probably have it, all of those different opportunities, to the humanities. Obviously, we're Gettysburg, we have a bit of history. Yes, that's a great program at Gettysburg. Frankly, I'm a little biased towards the performing arts, as I chose Gettysburg because of its music program. We have a very strong conservatory. But then if you look at our quantitative area, business is one of our top majors. We actually just found out today, if you're watching this later, today is October 7th, but we just got an incredible $3.5 million donation from a graduate to help support our new business program. We have an incredible business organization studies and business organizations and management studies major. We call it the BOM for short. And data science minor and economics major. So in other words, liberal arts allows you to dive in deep to those academic areas, but at the same time, you get the breadth of disciplines. So you will still take courses outside of your major. And we feel that really gives you the context to be a strong citizen of our world in the sense of when you're out there in the career market saying, okay, I need a job, can you talk about it from many different perspectives and many different vantage points? And the liberal arts really gives that to you. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back to Luke. We're playing a little bit of ping pong here. But Luke, talk a little bit about what the dynamic is like between the faculty and the students and that whole relationship.
Yeah, so thank you, Mary. I think that it's a dynamic. Something that we pride ourselves on here at Gettysburg. Wow, I'm going to pay for that one later. Are our small class sizes and our relationships with our students to their professors. So our average class size at Gettysburg is 17 students. Your professors are right in front of you. You're really going to know them. Right now, we've got a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So it's really important to us that you see your professors and you know them. In many cases, they've got PhDs and doctorates and Juris Doctorates. But since we don't have any graduate students here at Gettysburg, the research opportunities that we're going to talk about, the internship opportunities that we're going to talk about, those things are often filtering right down to undergraduate students, sometimes in their first year. So at Gettysburg, you might call your professor by their first name. You might go get coffee with them on the weekends or walk their dogs or babysit their kids. And I think being able to have a relationship with an expert, maybe outside the classroom, is not a bad thing. But in the classroom, they're going to be your advisors, they're going to be your team members, and they're going to be people who support you throughout your academic experience. Mary's talking about all these great programs and opportunities we have on campus. Every class that you're going to take is taught by a professor. So being able to be up close and personal with them is important, and also make connections that'll last outside of your Gettysburg experience. For me, I would say the most important relationship that I had with a professor was to my first year advisor, who was the professor who taught my first year seminar, a class that we'll talk about in a little bit, but he was also the provost of the college. So being able to have a professor who I knew really well, Chris Zappi, Mary knows him, Tyra knows him, to me, he's not Provost Zappi, he's Chris. And he was kind of in my corner for my first year when I was trying to figure out, okay, I really like biology, but do I want to be a biology major? What other classes should I take? I was able to go into his office during office hours, which every professor has, and just say, hey, I'm thinking about this stuff. What do you think? So you'll really know your professors at Gettysburg. And I think that's really crucial to, again, opening yourself up to these opportunities like internships, like externships, which we offer at Gettysburg, and like research, which I think Tyra is going to talk about for just a little bit. It's really big at Gettysburg. I know Tyra has done it, as have I. But Tyra, what is research like at Gettysburg? What are professors doing with their students?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as we've been talking about this, right, that 9-to-1 student faculty ratio, small class sizes really does foster that hands-on community and that hands-on learning that we pride ourselves here at Gettysburg. And so it's the basis of everything you're doing, right? Those classes are discussion based. You're going to learn something and then you are going to apply it. You for sure are. Field trips are a thing at Gettysburg College, definitely in that first year seminar, but other courses in the hard sciences, you're doing field work for sure. Or if you are in the social sciences, humanities, you're getting grants to be able to do fellowships over the summer or using your study abroad program to start that research or continue that research in various ways. And so 50% of our students, or more than 50% of our students, will collaborate on research with our faculty. And that can lead to them actually being published as an undergraduate student, and then also presenting at conferences, right? This picture right here that Mary is pointing to, that is our one of our 2 virtual dissection tables. Right? We're putting a lot into the facilities we have here to help our students have access and continue to do the work that they're doing. These virtual cadaver labs, this is a way for students to, it's really reshaped our anatomy and physiology class. It's a way for students to use the tip of their finger to dissect the human body. It's like a giant iPad, basically. And so actually that is a circulatory system. High five to my bio professor from like 7 years ago. But so our students are the ones who are doing that. Our professors, they kind of guide, but they are hands-on getting out there. We also have a viewing room, right? So this was built, these bays have, an atomic force microscope, but it was built for that interdisciplinary learning. And so it's not just in the bio department, it's not in the chem department, but students across disciplines can use that and help us to foster even more cross-disciplinary research as well, right? For instance, there's so many environmental studies students that do research across disciplines. So like one of our students, Alyssa, who partnered with a computer science student to look at how drone technology, use the drone to map the topography of an area basically. And what they were looking at was possible flooding and how to subvert that. Right? Or our other environmental studies student, Marion, who I miss dearly, she just graduated not so long ago, but she was another environmental studies student who was she did our XSIG program. So that is the cross-disciplinary summer science Institute here on this campus. And so it's a mouthful, which is why we call it XSIG. But it's a way for students to, again, dive right in. Even right after your first year, you can start this program. So you're on campus, you have housing and food, and you also get a stipend, and you're doing research the entire summer with a professor in whatever department that you are interested in. So like one of our other tour guides, GC, Giancarlo, he got to do that right after his first year. And what he did the entire summer was trying to figure out the function of this bacteria. I don't know what it is. It has a very fancy name, but that was what he did for 8 weeks. And now if you look it up, his name is right on the side of it as who founded what this does, right? But Marion took that program to start her research, got grants to continue that research, published her research, and was asked to present at a conference in Stockholm, Sweden by herself as an undergraduate, right? And so Gettysburg, we put a lot into opportunities for our students in academia, very much so. And I think, you know, when you look at schools and when you're asking them questions, you gotta ask, not just the surface questions. Do you have this? Okay, well, what can I do with it as a student? What classes am I gonna take? Am I gonna have access to professors? What kind of equipment you have going on? And can I, as an undergraduate, do that? If you're looking at more than just an undergraduate institution, who gets those opportunities? You or the grad school students that are there, right? So you want to start asking in-depth questions surrounding research, because that's how you get kicked off in your field, whether that is continuing academia, going off to grad school, or if you are going off into the field right after. And so having that hands-on experience is for sure important.
I like to say we have the 1, 2, 3 approach. The approach that A, we want to make sure you get the degree. Big number one, because job markets, grad schools, they're looking for that. B, we want to make sure you get the hands-on experiences, whether that's research, internships, externships, micro internships, all different sorts of opportunities. We want to make sure you get the hands-on. And 3, it's all about the networking. It's all about who you know. We want to make sure you're connected to the right people in your field so that when you're graduating, and frankly, before you're graduating, you've got job offers coming at you, and our students do. So that's a huge piece for us.
Yes.
I'm actually going to pause because we've, oh, go ahead, Tyra.
Do you see it? Okay, you see it. Go
yes,
ahead.
We're on the same page. We just noticed that question. Thank you so much for asking the question. It is Gettysburg, does Gettysburg have an honors college? And we do get that question quite a bit. Honestly, to be honest, Gettysburg, the college, is in and of itself like an honors college. Many times at larger schools, they will have smaller versions of a strong liberal arts college as who they are, if you will. So Gettysburg is taught, the curriculum is taught at a very academically rigorous level, high expectations. You can choose to graduate with honors in your particular major or minor area, but we do not have a special separate honors college because really we're taught at that same level, if you will. So now I'll just highlight, we do have a fun video to share, which kind of gives a more of the personality of the place. And actually, before I talk about what's unique about Gettysburg, some of the specific programs, I'm just going to share that video because frankly, it's a bit of fun. And hopefully it gives you a context of the personality of this place. So bear with me for a moment while I go ahead and share my screen.
We are shaped by the people around us, those who inspire us to be more, to do more.
Gettysburg College has a spirit about it.
You want to be a better person. You want to keep exploring and experiencing new adventures and find something that no one else has before.
When I first sat down in that classroom, I didn't know what to expect. And then it all became real. My professors believed in me. This place, this field, my coaches, my teammates, my friends, they've all become an integral part of me.
Talking with friends from back home, I'm the only one who's doing research from day one.
I launched my own startup in my first year. I studied the Battle of Gettysburg on the battlefield.
I'm experiencing the world, and I'm making a difference.
We love this place. It's the traditions, the town, the campus, the people, the cookies.
So dream big, then make it happen.
Come join us. Be a part of our community. Together, we can change the world.
Together, we can do great work.
So I hope that gives you a little bit of a sense of the place. I always say, this place just had such a huge impact in history. And frankly, our students continue to change history day in, day out, in the present, and looking towards the future. And that's what we challenge our students to do, is to inspire others, inspire each other to make a difference, to have an impact. And hopefully that video gave you kind of some of those different highlights. But there are some unique things that you can only find at Gettysburg, besides the fact that, oh, by the way, that famous battle happened in Gettysburg. Luke, do you want to just bring up something that's, I know, near and dear to your heart? We have some really neat connections with not just President Lincoln, but another very well-known president that is actually a little bit more tied to Gettysburg.
Yeah, so as Mary said, everybody knows about our connection to Abraham Lincoln, of course. It was actually a Gettysburg College alum, David Wills, who invited Lincoln to give the Gettysburg Address. There's a piece of your history for the day. I probably should have said this, but I majored in history and I minored in Civil War era studies when I was on campus. So I do love talking about the history of campus, but as Mary says, we have a really close connection to Dwight D. Eisenhower and his family. Not only was President Eisenhower a resident of Gettysburg, both before, during, and after his presidency, but he was on our board of trustees, and his granddaughter, Susan Eisenhower, continues to work with us on student programming through the Eisenhower Institute, which is his public policy institute on our campus. It's essentially working with the legacy of Dwight D. Eisenhower, and as Mary says, kind of looking towards the future. It's an opportunity and an office for students who want to get involved in public policy. But the unique thing about it is that they don't have to be public policy students. They don't have to be political science students or history students or law students. Right now, the Eisenhower Institute is an office, and basically there's two different offices, but it's a program on campus that leads students through different programs throughout the year, throughout a week, throughout a month. They're all different lengths, focusing on things from presidential decision making and leadership on D-Day. That's a program called Strategy and Leadership in Transformational Times. It's actually run with Susan Eisenhower. I was lucky enough to do that program as a student, and essentially for an entire year we worked with Susan Eisenhower. Every other week we were either sitting in the conference room at the Eisenhower office on campus eating pizza and reading presidential books, or we were going down to the office that the Eisenhower Institute has in DC, which is only a 5-minute walk from the White House, and meeting with policymakers and change makers. At the end of that year, we went to France, and I was walking on the beaches of Normandy with an Eisenhower, which is something that only Gettysburg College students and members of the greatest generation can say they've ever done. And I think that's something that not only ties us to our history and our location, but also helps us work with campus partners across campus and across the country. The Eisenhower Institute has worked in communities in Florida. I'm not sure the specifics of their project. Mary could probably speak to it a little bit better, but they worked with local policymakers to provide, I believe, an ecologically sound water treatment plant for this town. And I think it's really unique and interesting because these are first-year students, sophomores, juniors in college, and they're working with policymakers and making real change. And the Eisenhower Institute is more often than not kind of the driving factor for a lot of those on campus. And as I said, I was a history student, of course, but I was working with students who were environmental studies majors and fine arts majors. And we had a few musicians, Mary, in our program as well. But the Eisenhower Institute is really a place for students to make that change that Mary talked about, and to not only make it here on campus, but be able to kind of spread it both nationally and internationally if they can. In many ways through traveling, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a little bit, a little more traveling on and off campus.
Yeah,
but it is
the Eisenhower Institute is definitely one of my favorite unique Gettysburg programs. Of course, I'm biased towards our Sunderman Conservatory of Music that allows students to study music at a very high level, and yet anyone can participate. Doesn't matter if you're a music major or minor, anybody can participate in those. And then we have our Civil War Institute, only at Gettysburg. And we have our Garth Waite Leadership Center. And last but not least of our 5 very unique Gettysburg programs is our Center for Public Service, which actually leads into campus life that I'll throw over to Tyra.
For sure. So just quickly about the Center for Public Service, we are a presidential award-winning Center for Public Service for our students completing over 60,000 hours worth of service, both on and off campus. And what's fantastic is that that think critically, act compassionately piece is that we put the think critically piece behind every single thing that we do. There are people that, of course, want to do things and they want to help, and that is just who they are as a person, and that's who we are as a Gettysburg community. But you have to think critically, right? Kind of like that saying, teach a man how to, you can give a man a fish, or you can teach a man how to fish, and he'll be fed for the rest of his life. And I think that's kind of where the sense we're bringing to these programming that we do is that we're trying to make them sustainable across many different years and decades. So one of them is the Painted Turtle Farm, which has gone through a couple of different iterations. It started off as students just wanting to garden and then say, all right, we'll give them to our dining hall for food. Okay, well, why not give it to the community? And that turned into why not garden with our community? And so right now that Painted Turtle Farm is the place for students to garden with members of our community who gets plots of land, and they're sharing this experience, they're sharing culture, they're sharing language, and they're sharing food because there's a potluck every month as well, fresh tortillas. But that's one of those things that we have on campus. And then we do off-campus programming through our Center for Public Service as well, whether that is out in DC or internationally, right? Our immersion projects, some of them are across states, but some of them are in Puerto Rico, in Nicaragua, in Rwanda, and they center around learning something important. It might be food security, it might be education, it might be women's rights or peace building out in Rwanda. I'm actually, as an alum, a little bit upset that that was added after I graduated. I'm letting it go though. Have I? Not really. But that is, just a little bit of what our Center for Public Service does, right? Basically, everything from tutoring and teaching English as a second language to these larger trips and programs. But that impact, we want it to be lasting and we want it to be positive.
I think it's really important to note too that all of these opportunities that we're talking about, all of these distinctive programs, the ability to travel through things with the CPS and others on campus, it's all happening because we're all here. Something we haven't mentioned yet is that we're a residential campus. Right now, 95% of students live on campus all 4 years. And so they're engaged in things like the Center for Public Service and the Eisenhower Institute and the Civil War Studies program, but they're also joining our clubs and our sports teams. As we've already mentioned, we've got 120 clubs on campus. Our students are doing everything from, political clubs to the newest one, I think, is the Apple Cider Appreciation Club or something to that effect. I'm assuming it's a seasonal club, but students can create their own clubs on campus. There's the Pit Barbecue Club, there's the Beekeeping Club, but then there's affiliate organizations like the Black Student Union, Latin American Student Association, the Asian Students Association. So being able to have a healthy club life and a healthy kind of extracurricular life is something that we're going to blend into those experiences like the Eisenhower Institute, the Civil War Era Studies Program, Center for Public Service, and GLC. We call them co-curricular programs because, you are going to class as well. And something that's really important on this campus is the balance between academic life, social life, club life, all those things. But Tyra, can you talk about like clubs, like your experience with clubs? I know you were involved in a lot when you were a student here.
I sure was. I worked a lot. There are tons of opportunities for on-campus jobs, and even in town, some of our students, are waiters, waitresses at some of those restaurants as well. I had 6 jobs on campus, but beyond that, I was a part of the Black Student Union, the Latin American Student Association, Bomb Squad, one of our hip hop dance groups on campus, the best one, actually, shameless plug. But I think that across the board, you find something that you're interested in. Every semester, at the beginning of the semester, you have the activities fair where everyone is out center quad, and they're signed up. And as a first year student, you probably sign up for all the emails, but you figure out which clubs are interesting to you. And that's the one that you end up going to. You end up going to 2, 3, 4, 5. A student who does well at Gettysburg is a student who doesn't mind being engaged, being challenged, and having maybe a lot on their schedule. We don't force them to, but for sure, there's so many things happening that you're interested in. We're also a D3 school, so sports are also another part of Gettysburg. Definitely a quarter of our students will be involved in that. We also have clubs and intramurals. And then we also have Campus Rec putting on random things like bubble soccer and movie nights in the pool where they'll play Jaws or Finding Nemo, right? Two sides of the coin there. Or glow in the dark anything. I have found through Gettysburg College that you can pretty much make anything glow in the dark. So glow in the dark badminton has been a thing. There's always events, and it's very pretty to see all of the different colored lights. But in a given year, we'll have over 800 events happening on campus. So you'll never be bored. You'll just need to make sure, one, you put your homework first. And two, maybe figure out which events that you are the ones that you definitely want to go to. You'll have to pick and choose a little bit. Our campus activities board also puts on events for the entire campus. So those movie nights out on the quad, or Wingo, where you eat wings and play bingo. But the prizes are really cool, kind of like Xboxes, Amazon gift cards. I've never won. I'm planning to still sneak in a little bit. And as much as we want you on campus, as much as you want to stay on campus, we definitely push you to go abroad as much as possible. About 60% of our students study abroad at least one semester, but what's really cool is we make it seamless. That's why we're number one. It's a zero cost difference for you to go abroad, and you can go for 2 semesters. I think that's kind of on the rarer side for some of these colleges to have that 2 semester. We also give you a flight voucher both semesters as well. So that's paid for, yay. And because we have over 100 affiliated programs on every single continent except for Antarctica, you kind of can go wherever you want. And they're affiliated, so all of your credits transfer back. That's where that seamless is. There you go. Out in Cairo, this was at the one on the top right is Great Barrier Reef. Bottom left is in China, and then Italy on the bottom right. So our students are kind of everywhere. There's a program for all types of students. I did study abroad in Costa Rica. That was a language intensive program, so my Spanish had to be on par before I got there. And I live with a host family that still is we're still connected. I saw them because I traveled there for work. They will comment in Spanish under any and all of my photos for sure. And I really, really enjoyed my experience, but study abroad is something we definitely push our students to do. As much as we have things on campus, we also want you to become global citizens of the world as well. That makes sense. Cool.
So I hope you get a sense from all of this that Gettysburg students are busy, they are involved, they are game changers, they are leaders, they are double majoring and minoring and working 6 jobs, Tyra? 6? Wow.
6.
6 jobs. They're involved in community service. They're athletes. A lot of our students are athletes. About a third of our students do varsity sports. That number probably goes up to about, I think the number is 86% who do clubs and intramural sports. So that's a big thing. By the way, we are the winningest school in our conference. Very proud of that fact. We're a little competitive too, I might add.
You're the only one to have a marching band as well.
Yes, and we are the only school in our conference to have a marching band. We are very proud of that fact as well. Nothing like it on game day when you hear the marching band waking you up on a Saturday morning. You can't beat that. But our students are very actively engaged. And I think that's something characteristic of our applicants looking at Gettysburg that tend to have lots of different academic interests, lots of different extracurricular interests, and frankly, want to change the world and make a difference. So that is important to us. And we look at it as, you know, we're paying it forward, if you will. So all of those things are a part of this puzzle. Now, there have been some great questions in the chat box about the admissions process. I promise we are going to get to those. Actually, I see my colleagues typing as we go. So we definitely want to touch on admissions, scholarship, and financial aid. But before that, I'll just highlight a few Gettysburg traditions because frankly, I don't think you can talk about Gettysburg without talking about some of our traditions that are very characteristic to us. So I'll share a screen, but let's highlight two, if you will. I'll highlight, well, you know what, Luke, you go first. I'll share my screen and you go first.
Okay, all right. Now, as Mary said, traditions are really big on campus. As Tyra mentioned at the beginning of the session, we were founded in 1832. So we've been around long enough to kind of accrue a few of these traditions, but my favorite one, and it probably is because I'm a history nerd, and it probably is because I love Gettysburg, is something called the first year walk. You can see it down there in the bottom right hand, or the bottom left-hand corner, excuse me. Now, as a first year, you'll get to campus a week or so before the rest of the students do. You're going to have kind of an orientation week where you learn where your classes are, you learn who you're living with, and kind of get to know Gettysburg as much as you can in that week. And the third or fourth day of this week, you'll do the first year walk. And that's an on-campus event that happens every year. All of the first years gather in the chapel, which is on campus. The president or the dean of students will give a speech and kind of explain, here's what we're going to do. And then all the students will filter outside. And there's always around 700 of them or so. They'll filter outside and they'll walk from campus to the Soldiers National Cemetery, which is where Abraham Lincoln, gave the Gettysburg Address, where Gettysburg gave the Abraham Lincoln Address. Yeah, there we go. But on the way, it's about a mile walk. We get a police escort. All the roads are blocked off. We have basically a parade route all the way up to the cemetery. And the members and community members of town, not affiliated with the college, just people who live in town, who work in town, the shop owners, the restaurant owners, will come out and cheer us on. And they'll hang big signs from their windows that say, welcome home. And they'll throw big coupons for haircuts and t-shirts. There's always some sort of snack. My year, I believe it was microwave popcorn from the church on High Street. But essentially, it's a way for our students to see the town of Gettysburg, but also for the town to see them. I remember my first time doing the first year walk as a non-student, as an administrator, there was a group of moms on the square in town that were holding free mom hug signs. Obviously, with COVID, we're doing socially distant hugs this year, but it's a really cool event to be able to see the town and for the town to see you. Get up to the National Cemetery, someone will give the Gettysburg Address, and then a distinguished alumni or celebrity or someone will come and give kind of an invocation to your year here at Gettysburg, your first year. What are you going to do with it? And I think being able to sit on the ground where Lincoln gave the address and look up at someone standing in the same spot where he spoke those words from was powerful to me as a student, but it also helps our students feel that sense of place that we were talking about at the beginning. It is really crucial to us that you get that, because Gettysburg's a cool place and we want you to know the town and we want the town to know you. Tyra said she had 6 jobs on campus. I didn't have that many, but I had 2 jobs in town when I was a student here. So it's really important that we invest in the town and make sure that you know that it's there and that the town knows you're there, because you're going to be community members for at least 4 years here at Gettysburg, and we want you to appreciate that. The first year walk is a really good way to do that, but it's not the only way we celebrate traditions on campus. So Mary, take it away.
Sure. And I'm cognizant that we are down to our last 7 minutes. So Tyra, give one 30-second highlight of your favorite tradition before we touch on admissions and financial aid.
30-second highlight is Berg Burst. I was a sophomore the first year that we did this, and it has become my favorite tradition ever. It is a celebration of our cultures, right? This was started by our international students, but even our domestic students who are coming from various backgrounds, right? Like I was born in St. Croix, I'm bringing the Caribbean with me. And so that first half is food from everywhere. Get some mac and cheese at BSU, get some real chai at the Gettysburg African Student Association booth. Like get all of the food, the Vietnamese wraps, oh, so good. And then the second half is kind of a fashion show / talent show where students will either wear their cultural dresses or do a dance from their culture as well. My favorite thing ever. That was 30 seconds.
That was pretty good. I love it, Tyra. And yeah, that's totally Gettysburg. Absolutely. By the way, anything food related, oh my gosh, we're at 11 or 12th ranked for our food in the country, by the way. So a lot of fun tradition. 11th. Okay, 11th. They're correcting me. Thank you very much for our Gettysburg food. But without further ado, so we make sure to actually share a fun slide that is updated as of today. Today, we learned that all of our scholarships increased. So, and in a quick 1, 2, 3 minutes, looking at admissions and financial aid and scholarship. So first off, what we look for. In terms of the admissions process, this is what counts, if you will. We use the common application, that one common form, and there is one essay as a part of that common application, the personal statement. Although this year there's a second mini essay called the COVID question. If you choose to answer that, that's absolutely fine. It's not something you have to answer. If you feel you've experienced a disruption due to COVID, by all means, answer that question as a part of the common application. But the most weight is placed on your academic transcript. I know many of you viewing this today are from Pennsylvania. All three of us are your Pennsylvania representatives. So we know your schools. We read your transcript within the context of your school. And that's important to us. Have you challenged yourself? Have you challenged yourself to the ability within your school context, whatever that means? Extracurricular activities, what you do inside and outside the classroom, you bring to our campus. So that matters to us. You shape our Gettysburg community. Recommendation letters, we require one teacher and one council recommendation. Standardized testing, that's a big question I'm getting a lot of right now. Gettysburg has been test optional well over 10 years. We're optional. It is an option. If you choose to submit, if you've been able to take the SATs or ACTs, great. If not, great, no problem. That's why we are test optional. That's completely up to you. And then we do look for some sort of visit. And this virtual visit does count, woohoo! But we have also reopened for in-person campus tours. So if you would like to visit our campus, you do have that option. Dates and deadlines are listed here. I think they speak for themselves. Early decision, you definitely want to know Gettysburg is your top choice. I will be honest, I applied to Gettysburg back in '95, early decision, graduated in 2000, I started in '96, graduated in 2000 and haven't left yet. Sometimes you just know. So I encourage you, if Gettysburg is high on your list, consider that early decision. And regular decision is a regular process. We don't release any of our decisions until we've reviewed the whole pool of applications, and that goes out about the third week of March. And then last but not least, scholarships and financial aid. These are hot off the presses. You are seeing them before most people are. We increased all of our scholarships as of this morning. This lists all of our different scholarships. All of these, from the Founders to the Lincoln, once you apply, you're automatically considered for those scholarships. Nothing else you need to do. Our Eisenhower Scholarship for Civic Engagement does require 3 short essay questions, answers. And all of these, once you earn one, you keep them all 4 years. We have a STEM Scholars Program for those underrepresented students in the STEM area. We have music scholarships for those interested in a major or minor in music, and they're based on audition. And then last but not least, we look at your need-based financial aid. We require both the FAFSA and the CSS profile in terms of the financial aid process. So hopefully that answers a lot of, in a very quick down and dirty in terms of the admissions financial aid process. As I said, if we were not able to get to your questions today, by all means, send us an email. And I'll share that last screen. We do have in our final 2 minutes, one fun video because our alumni do exceptional things. So I will share not only there is our contact information, so you have a chance to look at that. Hopefully take a quick snapshot of that. And then I will put it down. And in our final moments, I'll actually share with you one more that I love that talks a little bit about what happens after Gettysburg. Our alumni, externships, internships, a lot of students do it. Here's a highlight for you then. And on that note, we are right on the money with our time. Thank you so much for joining our Gettysburg College session today. I will turn it back over to facilitator number 44, Ryan Gillen.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm honored to be facilitator number 44. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items to wrap up. There is a quick survey. So after you close this window, there will be a very quick 4-question survey that we would love for you to answer. Feel free to sign up for more sessions. You can go to pacac.org/virtual, and the recording will be available after this session is done relatively soon. So those are also available at pacac.org/virtual. Thanks so much for taking the time today to join us for the last 45 minutes. And I think on behalf of everybody, I think we can all agree that we hope that you are staying safe and healthy and vigilant. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.